Hello, Pod Smashes of the Internet, and welcome to another episode of Anime Pod Smash, where gaming goes to grab a beer.
We're your hosts, Penguin and Termite. I'm Penguin.
I am Termite, and we are a weekly video game podcast smashing together ideas that you care about with video games.
That's right, and that looks like a stout and looks delicious. And tonight we are talking about Halloween and gaming. Now, you may be like, you guys do a Halloween episode every year. That's correct, we do.
We do.
Except that is the tradition we have is to do it for the actual week of Halloween, and that's our Monster Smash. And yeah, we've talked about horror games. We've talked about, obviously, we do a monster every year. But we looked back and digged and found that we never have actually talked about just like the holiday itself and gaming. So we figure, hey, week before Halloween, let's do that. And then the week of Halloween, actually, it'll air on Halloween itself this year, our Monster Smash on zombie games, which so you have that to look forward to in a week.
I'm going to have to break out the old sound effects again. Remember those? The lightning crash and the
yeah.
rotting house?
Yeah, so, but no, this time we're going to actually talk about the holiday itself and just the effects that gaming's had on Halloween and the effects that vice versa Halloween have had on gaming. So we'll get into all of that and more. But first, what are you drinking tonight? Because we're gaming this cup of beer.
I'm drinking Founder's Breakfast Stout. A solid,
classic,
amazing classic. It is seasonal, and it's out on the shelves, probably because the stores put out beers earlier than the seasons they're designed for. So normally you would drink this in like November, the end of November, when it's like crispy and really cold, maybe December, the beginning of winter. But they're out now, and it's been cold. In fact, we have a frost warning tonight here in October in the mountains. Yep. So, and it's middle of October. So yes, Breakfast Stout is what I'm drinking. Double chocolate cocoa, coffee oatmeal stout, the coffee lover's consummate beer. Indeed, I love
consummate.
Coffee. Love the word consummate. Brewed, I mean, it's a good word. Brewed with an abundance of flaked oats, bitter and imported chocolates, and 2 types of coffee. This stout has an intense, fresh roasted Java nose topped with a frothy, cinnamon-colored head that goes forever. Yeah, that's exactly what I get. All that. Cool. Coffee mostly, but, you know.
I am finally drinking my first non-Sam Adams Oktoberfest of the year. And it's by Leinenkugel, and it's pretty good.
All right.
It's surprisingly good. Like, I've had Leinenkugel Shandy. I think it's the summer Shandy they have that I've had before.
Yeah.
I don't hate it, but I don't love it either, right? It doesn't really stand out to me. This is pretty good. This is, like, very drinkable. It's not, like, right home about, but solid thing. Let's see. Does this say anything? Nah, because it's like a macro beer. They don't do fun flavory stuff. Like, they can barely afford their own labor force, so they can't hire someone just to write things.
Quips.
That's someone who could that's like 5 people that they could pay. The amount that I have to pay for that are like 5 people that could just be standing in a factory. And I don't know. I have no idea how Leinenkugel does. Let's see who even bottles them. I don't even know who bottles them. It's probably Anheuser-Busch or something. Milwaukee. Yeah, so it's out of Milwaukee.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So who knows? Maybe I'm like besmirching them and they're actually like one of the good ones. No,
who knows?
No good ones. There's never good ones. All right. Well, why don't we skip our normal banter and just kind of keep this episode tight and go right into our favorite things?
Favorite things. 80-bit Pod Smash is our favorite thing.
80-bit Pod Smash is our favorite thing.
Favorite Things is a segment of our show where we talk about something we're digging, something we enjoyed this past week, hopefully to inspire you all to find something you can also likewise partake in or find lovely for yourself. It can be shallow, it can be deep and meaningful, whatever you would like. I'm going to go with shallow.
Good.
And my shallow favorite thing is the Kind of Funny brand of people and their podcasts and all their shows opened up a new 5,000 square foot studio in San Francisco, and they had a 24-hour live stream marathon on Twitch, and they went through ridiculous amounts of content, and it was hilarious to watch. It was cool to like tune in throughout the day as I had my phone on me and just like on Twitch, and I would laugh. And it was cool to see all of the people that I follow in the gaming industry that I get a ton of knowledge and information and perspective from all in one spot. So all of my favorite folks, except for Colin Moriarty, unfortunately, because he departed Kind of Funny in like 2017 or whatever. But other than them, because, you know, we saw them live, Sacred Symbols was awesome. everybody else that I follow was pretty much in this stream. So it was really cool to see them all come together, interact. It was like best friends getting together. And it really made me, and this is why it's my favorite thing, remember those times when you and a collection of friends would all be in my basement and we would try to do something together, but it would never go. We would never do the thing. We would just all talk and like completely bullcrap with each other and just rag and joke and like laugh, and we're all drinking, and it's like maybe we accomplished the one card game we set out to do when we had like a stack over the course of like 4 hours. Like those are the crazy old wild and young and free days before we all had children.
Well, except when you just had children. There was a time period where it's like
there was.
You had the child for a long time, but all of the rest of us didn't have kids, so it was
everyone come to our house after we put the kid to bed and stay up super late and drink too much. And
yay, we could do that.
We had a blast.
Now we can't.
Yeah. No, we can't. Yeah. So anyway, that's why it was my favorite thing. It was relatable both on, I'm a podcaster. I talk about games. This is my input. Seeing them all together was delightful, but also reminiscing of my own past with my own friends, trying to do the exact same thing that they were doing on stream. It's funny. It's good.
Yeah.
So that's my favorite thing.
Oh, let's see. Oh, favorite thing. I hadn't even really given it a lot of thought. I feel like I had some favorite things last. Oh, yeah, I know. I got one. I like binged a show this weekend, and I haven't done that in a long time. And let me explain the context. So my wife was invited by her mom to go to some like conference thing at like their church. And so I was like, you should go because, you don't often get to get out of the house for, it wasn't the full weekend, but it was just like the night, right? So even so, she like left Friday afternoon and didn't come back till Saturday evening. So she got to at least stay a night without the kids. And I was like, I don't really get to enable you to do that very often, so let me do that. So I took the kids, just stayed at my house, and then my sisters came and helped out on Saturday. They had been not really able to visit for a while anyways, so it was kind of a good excuse to get them to come out and hang out with the kids. The not favorite thing that happened was my son, as I like to say, my son rolled a nat 20 against my sister's nose.
Oh,
and almost broke it.
Jeez.
But it was just an accident. They were playing and he like headbutted her nose really hard.
Ooh.
So that was pretty funny. But not it's funny in hindsight, but at the time it was like panic.
Yeah.
You hear the one thing that when you're just binging a show while your siblings are providing free childcare, the one thing you don't want to hear is, "Dad, we need you, help." I was like, and I was like, which of my head, of course, going, which one of my children is like unconscious or bent like in a wrong angle right now? And it was my sister. There was a brief moment where I was like, oh, thank God it was just my sister.
Well, there's also the aspect of like she's an adult and can take care of herself, which means you have nowhere near as much responsibility.
But I still also feel really guilty, right? My son, like, oh man, my son hurt you really bad when you came all this way to help. You know, I know she's of course not going to hate him, but I also still I'm like, oh. Anyways, that has nothing to do with it.
You binged a show.
My favorite thing. I got to binge a show. So I started the show. It was a 7-episode Netflix show. I started it the night before. So of course, after the kids were in bed without Macy there, I was like, oh, you know what? I can do
Midnight Mass.
Any show I want. And I can watch scary shows because I know you're wrong. I was like, I can watch a scary show because, it's Halloween and my wife's not here who normally would veto that. So I was like, scary show it is. So I fired up a show that just popped on my Netflix. Feel like it was like right there being advertised, and it was called The Watcher. And it's actually based, when I saw that, I was immediately familiar, and I looked it up to be sure. It is based off of a actual real life true story that I've actually heard of. I'm familiar with. And so I was like, oh, cool. I have like a passing familiarity with this case. And so I watched the Netflix show, and I binged it. I find out later after I binged it that it has terrible reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, but it's one of those things where it's like, okay, I can see your criticisms, and yet I still am like, you know what? But I loved it. It may be trash, but I'm trash for it, as you like to say. So it was, I liked it. It was good. It was very suspenseful, and people complain because you don't find out who this Eponymous Watcher is, right? But not only is that true to the actual story, right? Like, they still don't know who did this thing. The basic premise is that these people, they bought this like beautiful house in New Jersey, totally normal neighborhood, totally normal house. But like before they even moved in, they started getting letters from someone who like referred to himself, like completely anonymous letters by someone who called themselves the Watcher. And the letters are full of all this like creepy stuff. Like I'll just say, you need to just Google it yourself. I'm not going to repeat. It's really messed up, disturbing stuff, but you should look it up. And they actually, I believe they did the letters like verbatim in the show as well. Like it was based.
Oh.
So they take tons of liberties. It's the show is like balls to the walls crazier than the actual case was, but like the case is still surprisingly creepy. And the fact they never found out who the Watcher was, the person who wrote these letters, that's true in the show as well. So spoilers, if you go into it thinking, oh, we're going to find out who it is, just I'm going to disabuse you. If you go into it knowing that they're not going to do that, then it's a surprising story. And there's a really interesting sort of metaphorical layer there too, where it's sort of like the monster, it's not that the house is haunted, but it's like in a way the monster is the house. It's because there's sort of this greed. All of the like suspects have this sort of envy of the house.
That makes
and
sense.
Then like in a way the main characters, it's almost like the main characters at the end become Watchers themselves because of their envy of this house, because they lost it. And so then they're like, this was taken from us. And it's really, really interesting on a metaphorical layer. And I think I didn't read a lot of like takes on it that were about that. People were just like, man, don't know who the Watcher is. Man, why did I waste my time? Didn't even find out who it was. I'm like, because you missed the point. So anyways, really interesting. Check it out. So I highly recommend it if you want something spooktacular to watch. But yeah, no, I haven't gotten to binge a show in forever. So I watched 7 hours of this show over the course of like less than 24 hours. It was great.
Woof.
So it kind of starts out where it's just like, it literally is like stressful, scary, where you're like, I don't know if I'm going to sleep tonight. But like 3 or 4 episodes in, it becomes more of a whodunit, like almost like I want to figure it out. And even though you don't, at the same time, you feel like there's sort of a comfort that comes with the sort of knowledge of suspects, right? Like, oh, I can still imagine. I can at least put a face and imagine it was this person, as opposed to just this faceless entity that's out there.
Yeah.
Who knows, right?
Terrifying.
So yeah, crazy. So
nope.
All right,
that's a whole bunch of nope for me.
All right,
too much.
enough.
Too real.
Much. Too real. Well, then imagine being the people who actually lived through it. Like that's because again, even though it's not, again, there's still liberties that were taken. The actual true story is really creepy in and of itself. So
was the Watcher after the people because they're people, or was the Watcher only after them because they had the house? Meaning when they left the house, they're safe.
Well, yeah, I mean, but the thing is about the actual true story cases, there was actually no violence. There was never anyone that like they never had an attempted attack. But yet the Watcher would still talk about things they were doing in the house as if...
No, he was watching them.
They were watching.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So,
and that's creepy as crap. I don't want to do that. I don't want anything to do with that. Nope.
Yeah, exactly. So it is a spooky case. But yeah, no, I mean, more or less once they move. And there's weirdness about the actual true case. Like the letters have stopped since. Like there are actual new people living in the house and they had renters for a while that never received letters. It's really strange. So,
yeah,
weird. Some people think that the people themselves wrote the letters to like generate interest, but then they were never tried to capitalize on it. Like there are other people who have like capitalized on that stuff, but like they rejected getting royalties from like the Netflix show and stuff like that too. So it's like they weren't trying to profit off of this at all.
Interesting. Yeah.
So really, really weird. Yeah. So cool. All right.
Ooh.
Well,
Spooky.
that is favorite things. So that leads us to our final segment before our main topic, which is DLC. Stands for downloadable content. It is a segment of our show that is a fun little side mini discussion, a prompt that usually is a question you've never been asked about video games. So I'm going to keep this one simple, keep this one Halloween. Which video game character do you think would hand out the best candy on Halloween for trick-or-treaters, and why?
Ooh.
What candy would they hand out?
Ooh.
Just like open-ended question. Go.
Kirby.
Because he would hand out himself in gumball form. Like he'd be a little gumball.
He would just like open up and reach in and pull out all of those delicious treats that you see in every Kirby game.
Oh, yeah, because that's why I want partially digested Kirby candy. That's what I want. No, I reject that answer. See, I think that it would have to be like a cartoonish platform character, right? Like it would have to be
In order for it to be like good candy. I mean, I can't see like Leon Kennedy handing out delicious candy from the Raccoon City Police Department.
Take your T virus or T PCs.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Reese's T Pieces.
Right. Yeah,
what was that? Did you stutter? Did you? No, it's Reese's T Pieces. I don't know.
Reese's T Pieces. That's good. Yeah, no, some like dark haunted character just like
Scorpion from Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
He's like face is like a skull on fire.
Chocolate Scorpion.
Get over here, kid.
Get over here, kid, and take this candy. No, that's good. I see. That's even almost more fun. But no, serious answer. I feel like though some of the villains would give out, like Bowser would probably give out banging candy because he's rich, right? And like Halloween is Bowser's aesthetic, so he's probably a Halloween's his favorite holiday.
Yeah,
and so he's like into it, and he's rich, and he has like cool distribution methods. So
he's got a bunch of booze around him now at his command that he can do whatever he wants with.
I thought you meant like alcohol.
Alcohol.
I was like, when have they ever depicted that? And why is Bowser not the hero of every Mario game? It's just like drinking his way through Mushroom Kingdom.
The stiff drink and a cigar.
I love it. But he's got a kid, right? So he's like, he's probably like, I gotta go all out. By the way, did I ever tell? I don't know if I told you this or not. There was, have you ever heard of the show? What's it called? Solar Opposites.
Nope.
It's on Hulu. It's made by one of the guys who does Rick and Morty. And anyways, they had a Halloween special episode. And one of the characters was ranting about how much he hates Halloween. And he makes the best comparison. He says, Halloween is like the horse girls of holidays. We get it. You don't have a personality, so you have to fill that void with ghosts.
Wow.
I was like, wow. I've got so many friends who are like Halloween. Everyone knows like the Halloween person. I'm like, ouch. Yeah. It hurts, but it's true. So that's Bowser. He doesn't have a personality otherwise, so he's totally into Halloween. But
so he just feels
you want that person on Halloween, yeah. So
you do.
Just loads candy, the best mushroom candy, the best mushrooms the Mushroom Kingdom can offer children. Bowser's got them. So
I can just keep listing like bad examples. That seems to be what I've. I got another bad example.
Yeah, what's another bad example?
Joel from Last of Us. Where are you going to get candy from? Yeah, where are you going? Yeah, trauma. Here
Skull
you go.
Candy.
Yeah. Not to mention there's no candy left in the world of Last of Us. So.
Bats. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I was thinking something crazy, something ridiculous, like some ridiculous answer. And what comes to mind, if I was to pick the most ridiculous answer, it would be like a From Software, like bad person, like
one of the bosses from one of those games.
Queen Marika would be an awful. All the candy would be broken, just like the Elden Ring.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Can't even keep a ring together. How are you going to do a Reese's peanut butter cup? Like this.
Although maybe it had the ring in the first place been a Reese's peanut butter. If it had been the Elden peanut butter cup, then maybe the tragedies of the game would not have befallen.
Yeah.
We just eat lands between. Yeah.
They'd be fighting each other over a bite instead of a ring.
Though I imagine that like Yarnum trick-or-treating would be like awesome because
seems cool.
They go through the hunt, and the hunt is basically like an actual effed up version of like The Purge meets werewolves meets H.P. Lovecraft meets. So like people who survive that would be just the best Halloween celebrators out there.
Yeah.
So that's good. If they have Halloween in Yarnum.
There's got to be some like solid sweets character we're missing here. Like of all of the lore of video games that we have, there's got to be something that's centered around treats. I know Herbie I keep coming to mind but
Marcus from Borderlands. I mean, he'd be giving out guns.
Yeah, he would.
Like just straight up guns. But maybe those guns shoot candy instead of bullets.
Yeah, feeling overburdened by money? Here's some candy.
Here's candy in a gun.
Yep.
It'd be an actual
gun that
gun,
shoots
but
candy.
It shoots candy bullets, right?
Yeah.
Open wide. Like, that is exactly like the opening of like a Halloween Borderlands. They introduce Marcus, and he's like, I have designed these gun that shoots candy. Now we got to test it out and make sure we got the velocity right. Open wide.
That's
Marcus.
it right there.
It's it. I just there you go. Not a free idea for you. I want royalties from Take-Two
Gearbox, come on.
Yep,
Come on, Randy, pay
Take-Two.
me.
Yeah, pay me, Randy. Pay me. It would have been a free idea if you'd hand over the IP to someone responsible, but no, Randy has to pay me for that idea.
Yeah, come on. Come on, Pitchford.
That's good.
Let's go.
Cool. Well, I mean, I would love to write for Borderlands. I feel like Borderlands is my voice. I could get the voice of Borderlands. Right.
New Tales from Borderlands is coming out in like a week.
I know, and I'm just not excited about it. I just don't
Really?
feel like, I'll see how the reviews are, and if it's
Yeah.
good, then maybe I'll circle around to it in like 2 years, but not right now.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel about, I mean, I enjoyed Plague Tale's Innocence, but like that just came out, I think, too, Requiem or whatever, and I'm like, I've heard good things about, like, it's beautiful, but I'm also like, yeah, but, you know, with Bayonetta around the corner, I'll probably wait.
Just chill.
So,
Yep.
Yep. So
I don't think I'm buying anything until God of War. I think that's my next purchase. Yes, that's right. Thank you. Yeah, it's pre-ordered. I forgot about it.
I figured you're going to get Bayonetta. I think it might have a good shot of like it's not going to win Game of the Year, but if it gets nominated, I think it would be a first for the franchise. And there's a lot of buzz around it. I've heard people who've got the early
controversy
reviews. There's the
hurled
controversy
it into the.
You know what I heard though? I saw something recently. Like there's one of the old Cracked alums. He made a really funny post today. He was actually the editor in chief of Cracked for a while before, back when it was good. And he posted a thing on TikTok. He recently discovered, he's like, oh man, so many more people. He like sells books now, right? Like writes and sells books, and like so many poor people pay attention to TikTok than like any other form of social media. So he like reluctantly got on TikTok and started doing stuff. Anyways, he posted a thing today that was like, there are two things you need to know in 2022. Anytime you see a public figure or a media personality of any kind say something or do something controversial, go ahead and pop over to their like website and see. $10 says they're selling a book or like a comedy special or something, right? And he says, because that's like, now they've learned that like that's how you get people to buzz about your stuff, is because if your name gets plastered, you cause outrage. You say something either ignorant and stupid, or like you say something normal in a stupid way to get attention. And he said, and he's like, and number two thing you need to know is people who complain about rent. Are you sure you just haven't tipped your landlord enough? Maybe if you tipped like 20 or 30%, beforehand. So he said something really stupid and controversial because he's selling a book. I was like, yes. But he like presented it as a completely normal thing. But I'm wondering, this seems awfully close to the release of Bayonetta to, if it was going to happen at any time, why say she's breaking her NDA to do this, right? Why do it now, right? When the game's about to come out? Does seem a bit calculated. I'm not saying there's a conspiracy, but I had that thought popped into my mind the minute you said like I was like, but aside from the controversy, there was also actual good buzz around the game. There's people who've gotten previews are like, oh my gosh, like I played 20 minutes of this game and I was hooked. So
Sweet.
And there was like Kamiya, one of the, I think the guy who Hideki Kamiya or something like that is the guy who runs Platinum, and he said they implemented aspects that they were planning to do in Scalebound into this with like the giant kaiju fights. Yeah. So
nice.
I am excited about it, and I have a take on the whole voice actor controversy, but not time. We don't have time to get into it. So
not today.
What a very, very busy, very, very busy end of the year for everyone. And there's good games that I'm just like, there are now suddenly good games that I'm passing up on, Plague Tale Requiem being one of them, that I'm like, I just, even though it came out first, I just am like, if I get this started, I'm going to have to put it down midway through because I don't have time to complete a game in 20 hours before the next one comes out these days. Halloween. DLC. Yeah. We want to hear what your thoughts are, everybody. What is the video game character that would hand out the best candy? What candy would they hand out? And just in general, why? And is it a serious character who just happens, do you think would be like, do you think that like, I don't know, Liquid Snake just happens to be super into Halloween, like when he's not on missions and just hands out? Is there a Liquid Snake? I don't know.
Yes, there is a Liquid Snake. He's the clone brother of Solid Snake and Metal Gear Solid 1. He's kind of the main antagonist.
As long as he's not Fluid Snake, that's a whole different thing. Like, it's a lot of different. And then we want to hear those thoughts. So what are your thoughts, listeners, to that DLC? Termite will share where you can share your thoughts if you have them.
You can tell us all about how the Star Fox crew would be awesome at distributing candy through their R-Wings over at
Yes.
80bitpodsmash.com. It's our landing website where we have links to all of our podcasts, platforms. We'll get to that in a second. But if you want to give us feedback, we have social media outlets, Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, Twitter. We also have a Discord server that's sometimes popping with good conversation about things. So come on over. All of that stuff is free. There's no gate, no monies required, no ads, except for what's presented through those platforms that is beyond our control. We don't have any of our own ads, so just come hang out with us. And you can also, if you're finding us through YouTube or Twitch, or like you clicked on a link or something and you found our whatever, and you're hearing this right now and you want to know about our podcast, what is that? Well, every Monday at midnight, we publish a new podcast about a topic and how it relates to video games. And you can find the RSS feed as well as the Google Play link and the Apple Podcast links, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, all over at 80BIT Podsmash, 80bitpodsmash.com. Go check us out.
Okay. Well, we're talking about Halloween and video games. So let's talk a little bit about Halloween itself, right? Like frame that we're talking about. I don't imagine that anybody will have any trouble agreeing what Halloween is. Although, you know, if we ever have listeners from other countries, I'm sure there are certain traditions. Either your country doesn't celebrate it, or maybe you celebrate a similar holiday with different traditions, right? You know, like our neighbors to the south and Mexico specifically, I think, with Dia de los Muertos or whatever, Day of the Dead.
Mm-hmm.
It's not actually a Halloween celebration at all, but it's similarly timed and similarly themed kind of celebration. So yeah, we want to hear all about. We would love to hear all about it. So, but you know, we're talking about American Halloween. So let's talk a little bit about what is it, what's its origins, how is it celebrated, and what are your general thoughts and attitudes towards Halloween. So why don't you talk about what it is? Like can you describe what it is without talking about how it's celebrated though? There's your challenge.
Can I talk about that it's a derivative of All Saints Eve, All Hallows Eve,
of course,
etc.? Yep. Yeah, that's kind of it, right? The eve of... Now I'm going to read from Wikipedia because that's all I know. The eve of Western Christian feast of All Hallows Day, which is October 31st, begins as the observance of All Hallowtide, the time of the liturgical year dedicated to remembering the dead, including saints, known as Hallows, martyrs, and all the departed. So that's kind of how it started.
That's definitely how it started. It's not what it is now. Now it's just sort of a general celebration of spooky things, right? Like it's sort of a, you know, we talked about, we celebrated the emotion of fear in the last episode. And this is sort of, I mean, that's sort of, if you had to sum up the American celebration of Halloween in one word, that would probably be it, a sort of celebration of fear. It's, you know, more optimistic people might say it's a celebration of, you know, our ability to confront our fears and overcome them by sort of embracing them and taking away that which is scary from them to claim them and own, like claim that fear as like, we are now in control of it, right? Human beings have always done that, right? So there's sort of something primally true about that celebration, right? In the same way, I like to say that Christmas ultimately is another solstice holiday. And the reason why all solstice holidays are simply there to say, hey, guess what, universe? We're still alive, right? Like we're still here, right? The coldest, darkest, most hostile time of the year, we're still alive.
And we're celebrating. We're not just alive. We're thriving.
We're not alive. We're thriving. Exactly. That's it. And so Halloween has got a similar vibe to it. And I think it's why a lot of people are drawn to it. That rebellious nature of being like, the things that scare us, we're going to literally put them on our bodies, and we're going to celebrate, and we're going to party, and we're going to go house to house in the dark and demand, rather, to be served delicious treats, right? It's a way of saying...
Trick or treat.
It's a way of sort of like celebrating, like I said, that human capacity to say like, hey, we're going, you know, we used to be scared of predators, but we're not scared of predators anymore because we've dominated them. They are now our pets, right? We used to be scared of X, Y, Z, and we conquer. It's what we do. Human beings, we face our fears and we overcome them. And so the most optimistic view of Halloween is that it's also a heavily commercialized holiday where the candy industry just gets to get, this is Christmas for the candy industry, and they also get Christmas as well. But the two biggest holidays for this entire this holiday almost serves as the backbone for that entire industry.
Yep.
Not to mention, you know, things like costumes and stuff like that. Like it's a very, very heavily like capitalistic holiday.
Yes.
By
There's
its
probably a
nature.
boom for like horror movies and shows that you just mentioned.
Of
Like
course.
streaming
Yep.
services now throw out all their scary content right around now, and like
Yeah.
subscriptions
But
increase.
that's not to say that it hasn't. It's not. I don't know, completely ruined. Like, we talked last year about how the phenomenon of trick or treating is like one of the last few organic, like, neighbor celebrations that exist out there, right?
Yeah.
And though I hate to use the word that's under attack, I hate to use that phrasing because I don't want to sound like fear monger, like or like have an axe to grind. That's not really the case, but there is sort of a dwindling of that with more curated events like trunk or treats and stuff like that end up being more of a sort of exclusive curated experience as opposed to trick or treat is and always has been a like
super public. Just go out
right
up and down the streets.
Everyone, it doesn't matter if you're on the street, you're welcome to participate, right? And that's unique, I think, to Halloween. Anyways, so talking about history and origin, you hit a bit on All Hallows Eve. Going back even further, there's evidence to indicate that the first Western celebration that we would recognize as Halloween may have come from something called the Festival of Samhain. It's a really hard thing to pronounce. It looks like Samhain is how it's spelled. So Samhain, I think is what it is. But it's pronounced like Samhain or whatever. But like Samhain is supposed to be a demon. And so his festival is sort of I believe it's a pagan. I believe it's not. I think, again, All Hallows Eve, Christianity, of course, came to and took this festival and repurposed it. But Samhain was like, basically he's a demon. And so you did these various rituals to keep him at bay. And one of them was to dress up like him and go around to people's houses and stuff like that. So yeah. So that's, I think, some of that. There's probably more. I haven't done it. I've like researched this in the past, but I'm pulling a lot of this from old research. So who knows? There's probably, none of this stuff is new. So there were probably traditions going back even further than that were just iterated upon until we recognize that we have Halloween. But so how is it celebrated these days? What's the recognizable? We've hit on a few of them, but trick or treating obviously is sort of the cultural touchstone in this country, but that implies a lot of things, right? Costumes. So the grown-up version of trick-or-treating is then Halloween parties. So there's often a lot of parties, haunted houses, haunted walks, corn mazes, and stuff like that. A lot of general fall celebrations are also
like
wrapped
harvest,
up in this. Right. So like
celebration of the harvest,
Yeah. So like I said, so corn mazes and hay rides and pumpkin picking and all that. Like it's all wrapped up in the Halloween season, if not celebrated on Halloween itself. And I'm blanking. Like, what other? Obviously, scary movies are a big cultural touchdown these days. Scary content online, as we'll get into with video games. There's often celebrations, in-game events, and stuff like that too. So there's a lot. Halloween is. I don't know. I would venture to say that Halloween is probably the second biggest holiday to Christmas, as just regards to people's general excitement and the sort of cultural, just.
Yeah, and you can gauge this if you want to prove Penguin correct. Go to like any hobby store or Lowe's or Home Depot, and you will see, in Costco, with no doubt, an entire like giant segment of the store decked out in Halloween or Christmas stuff. But when like Valentine's Day comes around, there's usually a much smaller section devoted to like Valentine's Day. And of course, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Labor Day, Memorial Day, 4th of July. Like there's some fireworks for 4th of July, but like
there's Thanksgiving stuff, but Thanksgiving's almost always coupled with like Christmas is also all there next to it.
Exactly.
4th of July is always, and it's also I think timing too. I feel like you're going to start seeing Halloween stuff hitting the shelves like September 1st. Yep, exactly. Yep. Like right after all the back to school stuff is done, it's like, all right, get the Halloween stuff out there. And then same with Christmas is like you see it right after Halloween. Or before. Sometimes before. Whereas like you said, Valentine's Day is usually like a couple of weeks before, maybe.
Yeah, and it's a much smaller selection of stuff in general.
And same with 4th of July is you see the fireworks stuff pop up in late June.
And then it goes away quick.
And then it goes away. Yeah, exactly. So interesting. Cool. All right. Well, then as your opinions, what's your opinion about Halloween in general?
I love the vibe. I love all of it. I love the cult. I love watching. Well, it's a personal preference for the weather. It has been unusually hot over the last like decade. In October, it's been super hot. To me, the epitome of Halloween is going to a theme park with the Halloween stuff happening, and that's Busch Gardens or like Kings Dominion, and for us on the East Coast. But like,
I miss
maybe Six Flags. Yeah, y'all went.
And our friend of the show Ryan has. Of course, after you've left the area, now he's got a season pass.
Nice.
Well, we didn't get to
Jerk.
go to the haunt, obviously, but we did get to
Right.
go to the pumpkin patch thing. I don't know if I'm going to get to go to the haunt this year, but no, I agree with
Yeah.
you. The haunt
And
haunt
like
stuff is
that
fun.
was kind of, there was a formidable time of my life, I guess, when you're impressionable, and I was young and in high school, and I went with a group of friends to the first like Fear Fest over at King's Dominion. It was like the first time I'd experienced like a theme park throwing a celebration. They transformed the whole park into Halloween with decorations, and I was like, this right here, this is Halloween. Like I was too
Right.
old for trick-or-treating, but even growing up, like I remember getting a costume, being excited, and like going around neighborhoods and trick-or-treating. I loved Halloween, and school usually does stuff, so the teachers and the classes and the decorations are everywhere. And yeah, I love Halloween. I think it's great.
I love Halloween too. I'm a late Halloween bloomer, and that's not my fault. I
Right.
think I explained last year. For those who didn't grow up in Christian families in the 90s, there
Me.
was a very famous like radio show, I guess it was, called Focus on the Family by Dr. James Dobson. And I guess this dude had an axe to grind with Halloween at some point. And the
Trigger
crazy
warning.
thing, yeah, the crazy thing is, well, I'm like, I can think of like a handful of our listeners who may know what this is.
Yeah.
Either way, I can't say for sure if it was this or if it was just someone else, but it was this general attitude. And to me, Focus on the Family was the thing that like probably, I knew my parents listened to it, and it's probably the thing that changed. But that's the thing, is like my dad grew up, like loved Halloween. My aunt, his sister, is like one of those Halloween girls. Like it's her favorite thing of all time.
Yeah.
And so like dad never, like it never was a problem for dad all throughout his youth and young adult. Like even up to like my sisters have memories of like trick-or-treating, and I even think I have memory of trick-or-treating like really, really young. But then like randomly when I was like 3 or 4, dad like got it into his head where he's like, Focus on the Family said trick-or-treating is devil worship, so we're not going to do it in this family anymore. So like we grew up, and like my family, again, I think I commented on this last year, my family's great irony is that we would like all get out of the house and basically, for lack of a better term, hide during like from trick-or-treaters, in order to not, like, instead of just like not participating, right? Like turn the porch lights off or whatever it is, like we're watching movies, we're not participating, right? Instead of doing that, no, it was just like we have to get out. Otherwise, they'll come for our soul. I don't know. I'm giving
so the whole family would just like,
but it ended up becoming this like super special day anyways, because we like go somewhere and watch like a movie somewhere. It wouldn't be a scary movie, but it would just still be like, oh, this is cool, a unique
Ooh, it's
experience.
Halloween. I get some fun family
Sweet.
night. Yeah.
Right. And anyways, I eventually became disillusioned to that aspect of it, and instead was just like, why so much you let me go trick-or-treating? Like I don't share the same. I was, I'm a Christian, and I still have like a lot of those beliefs, and even like in my most like religious stage of my life, even then I was still like, Dad, that's BS. Like that's complete. And so your notion of what this is celebrating is completely warped by this uber conservative like notion from a decade ago, and it's affecting my enjoyment of a cultural touchstone. Anyways, all that's just to say, in a sort of rebellion of that, I then have become like, I enjoy Halloween a lot. It is probably my second favorite holiday. Like I like Christmas more, but like Halloween is a blast. And of course, in my later year, or in my sort of immediate like freedom liberated years, where I was like, okay, now I'm in college, you have no say over what I do, Dad. Then I would do the Halloween party and stuff like that.
Yes,
my friends and I would throw it. We would throw a Halloween party in our
I've heard about these legendary Halloween parties.
Pumpkin. We misspelled it the first year, and so we had to keep going with the misspell.
Yeah, of course, and it's a pun. So
pumpkin layer. Yeah, exactly. And it was great. But I think I mentioned last year was one of the first years I actually got to really enjoy trick-or-treating as like through my child's eyes.
Yeah.
So I'm excited this year. I think my daughter is at the age where she'll enjoy it too. She'll just enjoy walking around and seeing the costumes and stuff. So I'm really excited, because last year we were like pushing to try to get home so she could get in bed. I don't think we're gonna have that problem this year. So
nice.
Yeah. Cool. Well, then let's talk about video games. 40 minutes into our show about video games.
Hey,
how then does Halloween itself influence video games? And we'll first talk about developers. So we'll say, what do I mentioned that like developers will often have events. So what do those events look like? What do developers do to celebrate Halloween? And why do they do it? Why put so much effort into content that lasts like 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks? Like, is the juice worth the squeeze? Let's talk about it a little bit.
So video games and Halloween really, really changed over the last generation
Yeah.
since the PS4, 2013 to like now. Is really an
Yeah, it's
entirely
like-
different landscape than what was prior to. And the difference is live service games.
Right,
There's
right. Back
so
in the day,
many
it would be
live-
like a scary game would come out, like
Yeah.
a game that was already planned to be a horror game that you could play any time of year. It wasn't specific to Halloween, but they released
Right.
it.
Yep.
On,
Like Zombies
you
Ate
know-
My Neighbors for Super Nintendo. I don't know when that came
Right.
out,
It
but
falls
that's
already
a,
really popular release schedule, so they would just enjoy
Yep.
the
Yep.
convenient timing of
yeah.
being
and
like,
then
"Yay."
MMOs of the day, like EverQuest and the older ones, Dark Age of Camelot and stuff. I assume they had Halloween events, but I'm not sure. But those were
I
the
don't
very,
really know
very, very
many
early.
before, right?
I mean,
yeah,
World
I
of
was gonna say-
Warcraft in 2004
World of Warcraft
obviously
did
would
it,
have
I
theirs.
believe.
Yeah.
Mhm. Well, it wouldn't
They
have been
definitely did.
2004 because
That's when the game
came
came
out
out,
in
though.
November. It came out in November 2004.
Right. Yeah, not that year, but I'm
You're
saying
right.
in my timeline
I think,
here.
though,
of-
the first, it would have been, the first Halloween event that I believe, like, recognizably saw, I would have said would have been 2005 or 6 when
Yeah.
they did their first Hallow's End.
Right.
In World of
Which is
Warcraft.
awesome.
And it
Yeah.
blew my mind. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Right. Because, again, MMOs being sort of the prototype of live
Mhm.
service games, that was like
Yep.
already a brand new experience. So to be like, oh my gosh, there's this Halloween event.
Yep.
Trick
That's
or treating
awesome.
in World of Warcraft is
Hey.
amazing. Yeah, exactly.
Termite
So-
always seizing the opportunity to talk about video game history. So we started in 2005. We're going to
Yeah.
move into 2006, 2007. The Xbox 360 and the PS3 are taking off. DLC is the thing. That's what it's all about, right? So
Yeah,
DLC is a way to add content. Of course, Borderlands
like
1
the
had
Borderlands,
the famous
Halloween,
zombie edition.
That's
Yes,
a
it was
good
so
one.
good.
It's a
It came
good
out right.
one.
Yeah, it was awesome. And then, of course, fast forwarding to what I was talking about initially with 2013 and forward, you have games like Destiny, and then the rise of like the battle royales, rise of Fortnite and PUBG, and countless
Now
other
it's
games.
ubiquitous. Now
Destiny
you, like,
and
have to
Overwatch
have.
and
Yeah, if
you
it's
have to.
live service in the title, it's gonna have to have some form of it, right? I remember Borderlands 3 had to like shoehorn one in there because the game came out in like the end of August.
Yep.
It was like the first holiday that came up. It was a totally half baked idea
Yeah.
for it. Very actual little content to it, but they they got it out that first year, and I think they felt like they had to.
Yeah.
And I think it's almost more so than I would almost say that Halloween celebrated more ubiquitously in video games even than Christmas.
Mhm.
Certainly more like, I mean, I think it's because it is usually that first big holiday, so it's like they feel like they
Yeah.
go all out for Halloween, and then sometimes I think the Christmas stuff then suffers because like
Yeah.
the turnaround there is like, oh, we got to get like the Christmas stuff out. Yeah,
I would
so,
also think of like the globalization of gaming in general, with especially online service games.
yeah,
Christmas is very like, at least what we Santa Claus and like those things are very North American kind of Christian based things. And there's so many other types of holiday celebrations with the holidays versus Halloween, which is almost ubiquitous
just
to what we know
general
as like
spooky,
candy
scary,
and pumpkins
yeah.
and spooky things. Like there's no
Well, then you can
religion
just take
like
the
been
spooky,
there.
right? Exactly, and you can take the sort of spooky elements of other cultures and do like the Japanese.
Right, it's so adaptable. So
shoot,
adaptable.
what's the word? Like the Tengu and other other things, or like the ring monsters, whatever
yeah.
they're called. And I'm blanking on what the other one. Yokai.
Kaiju?
That's the word I'm looking for.
Oh.
Yokai.
Yokai. Yeah.
Yeah. Yokai stuff is like very, very translatable. But then again, so is like the Day of the Dead stuff in South America.
Yeah.
And all that imagery still translates really well into Halloween stuff.
Mhm.
So you can really just sort of tailor it to whatever culture
Yeah.
you want to like celebrate without having to necessarily then tie that back into, or you just come up with a complete you don't riff off of anything in particular, but you make it an in-universe thing where it's like, now we're celebrating the dark times of blah 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 blah,
Yep.
the history of this world. So cool. Well, then how then? And that's how like official channels, right? That's like these are the events. This is actual content coded into games. What's sort of the grassroots stuff that players will do? How do players or fans, or I'll even say like, what kind of like Halloween games came up out of the indie movement, the kind of that would be like recognizably like, oh, these are games that people will play during Halloween because we made them to be spooky, right? But in general, what are some of those fan celebrations that happen organically
Ooh.
as a inspiration of Halloween? I think I want to say that even before there were in-game events, like official in-game events, I want to say there were things like trick-or-treating in the proto internet games, right? The early MMOs and stuff like that. Like even if they didn't have events, like those events were inspired because people were doing stuff like Halloween stuff in the game, just because why not? Like it's so
I mean, there's
I'm
a
not-
bevy of games that come out that are not service games that like, can be played around Halloween. And I know
Yeah.
I've enjoyed in my early days with friends, playing like Left 4 Dead, especially around Halloween. It's a 4-player co-op game, so let's get together and play that. I did a live stream of Until Dawn, which is a scary game. You
I do my
Bloodborne.
Yharnam, my
Yeah.
Bloodborne. Well, there's also things like, that made me think of, that inspired me to think of things where it's like content creators will do Halloween
absolutely,
stuff.
yeah.
But like even before content creators was like a thing, I remember there was like, WoW would have several, like they have several like machinima shows where it was like they were making movies with the game engine, and they would do Halloween content. Red versus Blue was doing Halloween content.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
A long time ago.
Mhm.
And I just think of general like what was I gonna say? There were also things where like they try to dig into like spooky stuff, like whether intentional or unintentional, right? Like I would always see like articles and stuff pop up around from either journalism sites or other just general nerdy sites would do like specific things where they'd be like, we're gonna talk about the 12 scariest things that are the old listicle idea. I'll do 12 scary things that were like unintentional from the developers, or 12 like little subtle Easter eggs in games that are like actually really scary that imply such and such about the game's lore. All that kind of content that would come. Again, these games, this wasn't stuff that was curated for Halloween, but it was stuff that the fans would pull out later and be like,
let's play these things around
let's
Halloween.
Celebrate Halloween by
Yep.
talking about these or putting out content that's based around these things. Yep. And it's fun to see what kind of spooky stuff is out there in games that are like, again, either Easter eggs that aren't on the surface what you're supposed to get from the game, that like then you go back and you're like, oh my gosh, it changes everything, this is terrifying now. Or things that are just bugs, right? One of my favorite examples is a World of Warcraft example, so apologies there if you're done hearing about World of Warcraft, but this wasn't a Halloween thing. There was in one of the very first like lighthearted areas, Goldshire, I think you'll remember, they actually named one of the nearby bodies of water, they named it Crystal Lake.
Nice.
Which you'll reference. Yeah, exactly. It was
was
always a Friday the 13th reference, but like, and they could have stopped there. But next to Crystal Lake is a house. And in this house, totally normal house in World of Warcraft, nothing necessarily, out of sorts. But in this house, if you go upstairs, weirdly enough, there's 6 children, because it has to be 6. There are 6 children, and the configuration they happen to be standing in, they're just standing completely doing nothing but standing in this room, and the configuration they happen to be in is a pentagram.
Nice.
And if you turn the volume up and go into this room, the music changes. It's very subtle.
Oh, really?
And you would maybe not notice it, but it really, really subtly changes and gets spooky.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Totally something they like. You should totally look it up. There's certainly an old video. I don't know if they've changed it since, but there's an old video out there that chronicles what they call the Devil Children of Goldshire, and it's fascinating. It's a fascinating thing where it's like, again, that was something that was like, it was technically an Easter egg that they included, nothing necessarily to do with Halloween specifically, but like, you bet Halloween comes around and people are talking about the Devil Children in Goldshire. They would pop up every year. People. Oh, have you seen this? This is crazy. Forum posts and content and stuff like that. Exactly. So, yep.
You alluded to like the indie scene, and I wanted to highlight some cool games coming out of the indie scene that like are scary. Layers of Fear being one of them that we played through with a group of friends. That was awesome. And that's, what is the company that makes that? Bloober? Is that right?
They were the ones that were
keep me straight. The Bloober team. Yeah. That was correct. And then there was a couple of other ones. I've heard good things about Phasmophobia on Steam.
Yeah, I've heard. Oh, I want to do that.
Yeah, right? And then is Hades isn't horror, right?
No.
There was a game like Hades, though. Do you know what I'm saying? Maybe?
No. There's a lot of good stuff that...
Would Amnesia and Slenderman count as kind of the indie stuff? Yeah.
Those are both. I believe they are both indie. I don't know if they both came out around Halloween, but it doesn't matter. Like, there's still games that are like celebrated a lot during Halloween because of how scary and freaky they are. So cool.
But yes, streamers, Twitch streamers, the advent of that, live streaming content, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, whatever you want to do, really did change like the idea of gaming as a community and like celebrating Halloween together. And that's still kind of new to us. Yeah, PT
come out. Didn't it come out like, because I remember seeing that there was like the 12th anniversary of it, and I'm pretty sure it came out. It may have been just a September thing.
August.
Oh,
August 12th.
gosh, it's already been 2 months
2014.
then since. Okay, all right. Then that would have just been a summer, like trying to hit that like beginning of fall, end of summer.
Yep.
All right, never mind then. Still, I imagine a lot of people were like the year it came out were probably just like it was probably a Halloween in and of itself. It was probably a Halloween phenomenon.
Oh, Hellblade! You can't forget about Hellblade. That's indie.
Oh,
Yeah, and heard really good things about Inscription. Inscription is kind of taken over some things. So if it appears to be a card game, but it's not. So it starts all the footage of everything you see about Inscription is a card game, but it twists.
Have you heard of what's it called?
Doki Doki Literature Club?
That's the one. Okay,
Yep.
I wanted to say it, but I didn't want to sound stupid. Yeah, Doki Doki Literature Club is 100% a horror game, but it starts off as one of those like anime harem games where you think it's just about like high school girls and how you're gonna seduce them, but then it gets like horrifying,
crazy,
like shoe drops. Like
so I've heard
an hour into the game. I've never seen it either. Right? It's one of those things where it's like I want to experience it at some point in my life, but I'm also a little scared to experience it. I'm like, how horrifying is it?
Right?
Cool. All right. Well, let's look at this last question. And I sort of just threw a number out there for. I know it's not this exact number, but we've had video games be a kind of a big part of the culture for about 40 years. It's been more than that, but 40 years, let's just round it out to an even 40 years here. What effect has the last 40 years of gaming had on Halloween? So we talked a lot about how Halloween's affected gaming, but what's the vice versa? Like what effect has gaming had on Halloween? Now, my obvious answer is costumes, right? Like so
many characters.
Like, and gaming drove a lot of cosplay too. So then like, not just costumes you find at the spirit store for your kid, that's cheaply made in China. That's one thing, because those are definitely a big deal as far as just like part of the Halloween celebration. But you're going to always see just like oodles and oodles of next to the classic werewolf and vampire costumes and short skirt costumes
of course,
that are empowering for people of any affiliation. You wear what you want, but next to all of that is going to always be cheap versions of video game characters.
Which is kind of new. Like
it is. Well, it's kind of new, but like I said, but it's also been happening increasingly over the last 40 years as they've gotten more popular. And now it's like, again, now you're going to find just as many of those, and maybe even more than like classic monster costumes. But there's that version of it, but then there's also the cosplay where it's like, there's also then high end where they're going to like the cosplayers who are like doing this for a living, the models, they're going to go out and make crazy stuff for Halloween, just in celebration of Halloween alone, and that creates content that's more fueling the cycle of this Halloween or this holiday season, and fueling more and more of its effect on the gaming industry. So it's kind of there's like the low end version of it, and then there's this high end version where influencers then go out of their way to just continue to push that artistry forward. And big deal on what Halloween has become in this country. It's a big new part of it for sure.
And what's really cool is something that happened this year that I've noticed is you can, instead of candy, the Pokemon company came out with little booster packs of Pokemon cards specifically for handing out trick-or-treaters. And it was a big
nice
thing. And this is adjacent to Halloween, but now Hallmark is releasing crazy amounts of video game related ornaments for their Christmas trees. So this is where like the popularity of gaming is now creeping into even that holiday.
Into the holiday,
right? Well, it's all about costumes. That's the easiest thing to like influence. But when you start thinking of like the yard inflatables and like decorations that are sold, styles of lights, and you think of how streamers decorate their rooms, people are applying the way that they decorate. Halloween and the gaming industry is going to be kind of shaping that, right? You want your room to be a gaming centric space for the background of your visuals. Like that's Twitch. Go to any popular gaming Twitch streamer and you're going to see like awesome gaming nerd related Halloween decorations and stuff around.
I also think that but even more so than that, like gaming, because all these video games are now sort of part of the zeitgeist, like there's also effects, I think maybe more subtle, but effects that it will have on our like Halloween tastes, right? Like down to like there are probably cinematic shots in horror movies or horror specials, like TV specials that are celebrating Halloween that come from video games, or there are monster designs that come from it, right? Like, and I also think of like D&D, right? Or other tabletop RPGs like Vampire the Masquerade and Werewolf the Apocalypse, those that were all fueled by the Halloween aesthetic. And then now the influence of those games has sort of changed how we view vampire lore, right? Like Vampire Masquerade has a very specific vampire lore, and a lot of that has sort of crept into the zeitgeist around what are vampires, and that always pops up around Halloween, right? So yeah, there are choices that people will make in their
here's a great
content.
example. You just reminded Zombieland. You've seen that, right?
Oh yeah.
Double tap. Like that's straight up like references
From
to
a video
Resident
game.
Evil. Like literally, because the zombies could get up
It'll
if
get
you
back
don't.
up.
They
If you
can
don't
get back
double
up.
tap.
So double tap. Yeah, and that's obviously a humor game, but
well,
you know,
zombies, and we'll talk more about zombies next week. Don't you worry.
We'll go
we have
too
lots
much
to talk about zombies.
That is a very gaming related thing in a Hollywood movie, and
and video games were a big driver in zombies being popular when they were, and then zombies continuing to be popular. Like it was all driven by much of that was driven by nerd culture in general, but like again, one of the big drivers of nerd culture at the time was just zombie content after zombie content in video games. But so much of our like cultural perception of zombies is the video game versions, and that creeps into Halloween to this day. So big deal.
Yep.
I was also thinking there was one more thing. Just the idea of getting together and playing scary games for Halloween as a Halloween celebration. Now that is now a thing that definitely happens, certainly in many circles. I have definitely done that, and I still to this day, obviously, you know, I stream my Bloodborne, right? Like that is now that become a Halloween celebration for me, centered around video games. But it's not like, I am an enthusiast, yes, but I know there are people who are not necessarily enthusiasts that are like, hey, instead of watching a scary movie this year, we're gonna get together and play Slender Man, and it's just as meaningful of an experience, I think, than getting together and watching a horror movie, maybe even more so, because of the engagement. So cool. All right.
Do you remember when I first moved here a year ago? We have the common house in our community, and I sent you a Marco Polo of this house, and I was like, this is straight up Resident Evil, because I was in the middle of playing Resident Evil 8, and I was like, this is the same vibe. And you said it didn't really translate through Marco Polo. Do you remember that?
I literally don't, but I believe you.
So we have this creepy house. It's creepy at night, and I am dying to get neighbors together to play PT in it.
Oh, nice.
Because none of them are gamers. Like they are. I'm sorry, that's an incorrect statement. Some of them are gamers, and they would appreciate PT, but they've never experienced PT. They don't even know what it is because they're not like in the regular like channels and ditches that we're in. So I'm dying to get PT. I'm trying to sell it. I'm like, come on. Y'all need to go into the common house where it's really creepy and leave the lights off and play PT with me. And I will not say
the same common house you want me to stay at when I come visit. It's creepy.
It is creepy.
Why do you guys have a creepy common house?
That's a good question. It was here when the neighborhood started. It was here first.
You know that I'm going to, when I visit, I'm going to make it my intention to just over exaggerate every little tiny cultish aspect that I can possibly identify.
All right. Good luck.
No, I feel like it'll be pretty easy with your spooky common house. Be like, this is totally the guest house of a cult. Calm down.
Yep, that's it. What are you getting yourself
into? Speaking of cults, I want to play Cult of the Lamb. I don't know why.
Yeah,
something about the vibe, the aesthetic of Cult of the Lamb. I'm like,
isn't it a roguelite?
It is, I believe so. Which means I would probably enjoy it.
Yeah.
Ooh, you know what you should play?
What?
You probably won't have time because you don't have time for anything. But a great Halloween. Here's my recommendation for the year. This game came out in the spring this year, so it's not necessarily a game that came out for Halloween, but it's got such a good Halloween vibe. If you're looking for a game to play, that's not Bloodborne that I recommend every year. Look at Death's Door.
Oh yeah, you talked about that.
Incredible game. So good. The music still to this day, I'm like into it.
Yeah,
very fun. You play as a Reaper. But that in that world, a Reaper is a little crow, and you have a cool sword. Great, pretty easy platinum too. Not too terribly long. 14 hours, I think. So
came out in 2021. So you're a year.
Oh, am I really? Goodness gracious, it's been a year.
Time is a weird void.
You know what? I remember it was. I know. I remember it was one of the things that drew my attention. It was nominated for best music at the Game Awards last year. So that's probably what I was thinking. So yeah, good stuff. It does have really good music. Cool. All right. Well, that's the show. So we want to hear what your thoughts are on Halloween and gaming. How has this holiday affected gaming, and how has gaming affected this holiday? What are measurable differences or things you've seen in your lives related to these two things? Or what did we miss? What are aspects that we missed out where we're like, oops, that you guys are going to be like, yeah, but you forgot about this. And we're going to be like, of course we did. Like kick ourselves in the head trying to, that we forgot about it. So we want to hear that thought. Or hey, what, maybe you listen to Focus on the Family too growing up, and we're indoctrinated and we're like, your dad had it right. You're going to HE double hockey sticks for celebrating this holiday. So have fun with Eternal Damnation. I hope the trick-or-treating was worth it. We want to hear all those controversial thoughts and more. Jeremiah will tell you where you can share them. Yeah.
You can find us over at 80bitpodsmash.com. That's our landing website with links to all of our social media outlets, Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, Twitter, and our Discord. Check out and just go ahead and follow twitch.tv/80bitpodsmash. We don't stream often or regular, but we're there and we will sometimes stream some things. So if you just give us that follow there, you'll be made aware of when we go live. We also post on Discord when we go live as well. So go check that out. And if you're finding us by way of any of those other platforms, and you want to know more about our podcast, every Monday at midnight, we launch a new episode of 80-Bit Pod Smash. This episode is 266. So next week, 267 will drop on Halloween Day. No.
And it will be... it will.
Is it?
It will, because it's a Monday, yeah. 31st.
Oh, look at that. Monday. Yeah, next Monday, the 31st. Look at that.
Next Monday, we're going to be doing an episode. We're going to do our yearly tradition of Monster Smash. We did the Smash. We did the Monster Smash. And this year, we are smashing zombies. So we're going to talk all about zombie games. We dragged our feet. We did everything we possibly could before zombies. Except for maybe like witches. I guess we'll do witches next year. But we did vampires, we did ghosts, we did werewolves. I feel like zombies are the next low-hanging fruit for video games. So, lots to talk about with zombies. We're going to have to try to control ourselves. There's so much about zombies. So we will do zombies, and you'll hear more than you ever wanted to know about zombies for Halloween next week.
With that, we'll see you next week.